Welcome to Urban Knife Guy, where we explore the urban lifestyle and jungle survival. Did you know that carrying this knife can land you in jail, at least in Singapore? First, if you watch this channel regularly but have not subscribed, please do so to help the channel out. Thanks. Here's an article that just came out the day after Christmas. A man who threatened doctors, nurses with a Swiss Army knife gets 6 weeks in jail. That's right. So let's have a look at this story first. So the man threatened doctors and nurses at a hospital with a Swiss Army knife, hurled vulgarities at them, and has been sentenced to 6 weeks in jail. I'd like you to look at the last line where it says, 4 other charges, including one of carrying an offensive weapon, were taken into consideration for sentencing. That's right. This is deemed as an offensive weapon, at least in Singapore. And in Malaysia as well, that I know as a fact. Now I should mention, anything that I discuss here should not be taken as legal advice, but I've studied up a lot on this and I've got quite a bit of first-hand experiences with carrying knives in Singapore because I do carry knives, I do EDC knives. But I thought I'd bring this up because sometimes there's a bit of misconception about carrying knives in Singapore, and I believe in lots of different parts of the world as well. But I like to focus on this because the Swiss Army knife to the EDC community is definitely not considered a weapon. I mean, of course, it could be used as a weapon, but many things can be used as a weapon. I watched a documentary a few years ago, John something, and this guy killed 3 people with a pencil. That's right, a pencil. So a pencil could technically be a weapon. But for a Swiss Army knife, generally we use this as a tool. We use this not to attack anyone or defend ourselves unless, of course, maybe some people find themselves in a situation where they would want to use this for self-defense. But let's have a look at other parts of the article which are pertinent to this discussion. So here we see he then pulled out a Swiss Army knife from the pocket of his shorts and waved it around at the doctors and nurses around him. Another staff nurse called the police. Holding the knife, Sim roamed the hospital looking for an exit. At one point, he waved the knife at one of the nurses again. And subsequently, he was arrested. So, not much good reporting, I would say, was done in this article. I mean, we don't even know it was a legit Swiss Army knife, what model Swiss Army knife it was, and if he even opened up the blade. Wouldn't it be funny if he was just waving this around and that was a dangerous weapon? Or it would be even more funny if he had carried a 58mm Swiss Army knife, did not open it, waved it around, and that was an offensive weapon. So this goes into really what's the deal in Singapore, at least, when it comes to a Swiss Army knife. Can you carry it? Well, I've actually done a full video on what is a permissible EDC in Singapore, what the laws around it in Singapore and Malaysia, in fact, and you can check out that link in the card above or the description below. I don't want to repeat myself, but I will highlight key points. First of all, you must understand that the Singapore Police Force does categorize different types of weapons in different categories. There are those that are strictly prohibited, that means they're illegal, such as butterfly knives, automatic knives, throwing knives. These cannot be carried or brought into the country legally under any circumstance. And then there are those that you require a license, and these include other weapons such as handguns, and only if you have a permit for those can you carry them. And even so, there'll be lots of restrictions. Then there comes to another category of items which do not require any approval or licenses or permits. However, it is important to note that these items can be deemed as offensive weapons depending on the circumstances they are found. For example, if a traveler is found to have a hunting knife hidden around his ankle and is unable to provide a reasonable explanation, this technically can be considered a crime if the police wants to prosecute you. Now, I had a discussion in a previous video very recently on neck knives and how some people in other countries will conceal carry a neck knife underneath the shirt. And that's something I would never do in this part of the world, simply because if for whatever reason you're found to have this knife on you, it'll be pretty hard to explain why you're carrying the knife. Because one important point to note that in Singapore, Malaysia, and a lot of countries, carrying a knife for self-defense is not a legal reason or justified reason to carry a knife. So you cannot carry a knife for self-defense. So if you find yourself in a situation and you bring out a knife when there's no reasonable reason to do so, you can then be charged for carrying a knife, even as simple as a Swiss Army knife, as it is an offensive weapon. And the same goes for a box cutter, a small penknife, or any sharpened object which you have no real good reason to carry, except for you might want to use it as a weapon. So that's something very important to note. So if that guy in question in the news story was carrying the Swiss Army knife in his pocket, he was going around his day, even if he got into some altercation with nurses and doctors, but he didn't pull it out, very unlikely he will not be charged for carrying an offensive weapon. Now, he might be charged for other things like hurling abuses or abusing the public servants, but I don't think he will have that charge of carrying an offensive weapon. So that's something really important to know if you intend to EDC in Singapore or Malaysia. You can carry these if you have a good reason. Maybe you're doing some DIY work at home, you're on the way to your home from somewhere, and therefore you're carrying a knife. That's perfectly legal. But in a self-defense situation, you would really not want to pull out a knife or weapon, or what may be deemed as a weapon, in any reason, unless maybe it's really a last resort. And for the self-defense rule in Singapore, you can technically use this for self-defense if it's a proportionate response to someone. So if someone is just coming at you, let's say with their fist, and they're going to beat you up, if you take out this knife to use as a weapon, that would definitely be illegal. So you're going to be charged with different charges from using the knife, right, as a weapon and carrying an offensive weapon. However, if that person was in public waving a machete or parang and really waving at people and slashing at people, and you had no choice because he was coming at you and you had to take out this small knife to try to defend yourself, that would probably be okay. Now, you'd still have to go to court, go through all that legal hassle and all that investigation, but chances are, I think, you would not be charged for using this as a weapon. But again, don't quote me. Basically, if I were to get into any kind of scuffle, if I was carrying my knife, I would never pull it out. I would look around if I needed to get a weapon, to look around for any weapon that would be around that I could use. So it's just a weapon of opportunity to defend myself. And I wasn't using something I was carrying with the intention to defend myself, if that makes any sense. Now, this might sound crazy to some of you in other countries, but well, that's the way it is, at least in Singapore and Malaysia. And Singapore, as you know, most of you probably know, has the lowest crime rate in the world. So statistically very safe, and it's because of laws like this as well. So I thought it was just interesting to discuss in this short video. You can go to jail technically, or at least get into trouble for carrying a Swiss Army knife if they deem it as an offensive weapon, depending on your intent and how you use it. Oh, what are your thoughts on this? Will this deter you from carrying any kind of knife in Singapore if you visited or if you live in Singapore? Do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you like the content in general, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.